Okay, welcome everybody to this SEFI at Work session, the Engineering Skills Position Paper, the Industry Response. We've got a really good hour lined up. This session has been in planning for a few months, and we're delighted today to have a really high quality group of people here to discuss skills. What we'll be doing, we are recording this webinar, so if you don't want to appear on camera, please make sure you don't put your camera on. What I'm going to do is move on, just quickly go through what the agenda will be today. Firstly, we're going to do some welcomes and introductions. I'm Neil Cooke, who is going to be co-hosting this webinar alongside Jenny Griffiths. And we're just going to set the scene today before we introduce our panel guests, who are Anna Gail Blinn from Airbus, Isabel Sobrino Mate from CMET, and Joanna Googly from Siemens. We're then going to move on to the position paper on skills with Engineering Skills SIG member Thies Johansson from TU Berlin. And then we'll move into the main body of today's session, which is a panel discussion, and we'll also take questions in the chat on the position skills paper and the skills agenda. So that's the agenda for today. We're going to be quite fast in going between the different parts. We will follow up with a recording of this on YouTube and further information and a new position paper. And we'll summarize the discussion at the end. So before we begin the official panel discussion, I'd just like to talk quickly about the motivation behind the skills agenda. Now, clearly, the skills agenda is vast in the developed and the developing world. We've got lots of different frameworks at policy government level. In the European Commission, for example, which this position paper on skills has been inspired by, we have the Union of Skills agenda, which looks at the European workforce and how it can be upskilled in order to, and specifically in STEM, for meeting the challenges that we have for this century. And then in various different countries, for example, in Germany, we've got things like the Future Skills 2030 policy report, which spells out exactly what these challenges are. Things like climate change, AI, digitization, the democracy and political instabilities, and also disinformation. There are a number of different skills agendas, skills taxonomies, and the idea really for the skills today is to put forward to you on the call the SEFI's position on engineering skills and how us as engineering educators are addressing it, but also bring in new voices as well to the SEFI community of engineering educators, which are our industrial stakeholders, because these are really important voices to have in the conversation. So before we start the formal introductions, I just want to talk quickly about the Engineering Skills Special Interest Group. So SEFI, we established this in 2021. So SEFI, the European Society for Engineering Education, acknowledged that there was this skills agenda, and we set up a special interest group to look at that. And our remit is quite clear. We're looking at things like the skills inventories, what the skills are and their relevance and importance, and how that changes over time. And then we move into the engineering education space and think about, for engineers, how do we embed those skills, how we teach them in our engineering programs, and also, more importantly, or as importantly, how we evidence those skills. So measuring and evidencing specific skills in learners. And we're doing this at the moment with a view to what the workforce of 2030s looks like and the challenges that that workforce is going to have to address. As you can see from the shared screen, we have a number of members of the special interest group, and they've all contributed to our understanding and thinking of engineering skills. So let's move on to the introduction now for the today. So I'm Neil Cooke from the University of Birmingham, and I'm the head of department for electrical engineering in the School of Engineering there. Jenny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jenny Griffiths. I work at University College London, UCL. I work in central education development, but also work very closely with our Centre for Engineering Education, particularly on staff development and how staff can support students' development of the skills they need.
Okay. Thies, are you on the call? Could you?
I am. My name is Thies Johansen. I work at TU Berlin in engineering education, mostly concerned with skills and competency development and academic outreach among different students and collaborating with non-academic stakeholders.
Okay, great. And we also have our industry panel. Before I ask them to introduce themselves, as you can see, we have selected and really been happy to have three very major bodies involved in industry in terms of stakeholders. CEMET, for example, is the European Tech and Industry Employers Organization, represents 200,000 SMEs in Europe. Siemens has a workforce of 320,000, 80 billion revenue. Airbus, a similar size organization. So we've really tried to get some big industry voices today to talk about skills position. And what I'm going to suggest now is that we introduce themselves individually for the next 5 minutes each. Beginning with, shall we say, Airbus first, Anna Gail Blin. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so Anna Gail Blin, I'm working in Toulouse in Airbus Commercial. I'm working in the engineering department, the academy, which develops the competence for the Airbus Commercial division. And I'm especially responsible to develop the partnership with university so that we are able to have the good competence, the good skills, I would say, because the term is skills now, for our future program and also for the recruitment.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Anna Gail. Isabel?
Yes, good morning to all of you. So my name is Isabel Sobrino. I'm here representing CEMET, that is the European Organization for Metal, Engineering and Technology-Based Industries. Sorry. So we are an employer organization that is based in Brussels. We are also a recognized European sectoral social partner, and we are dealing with workplace topics mainly. One of the main focus, of course, is skills, because as we all know, there is currently a very big skills gap, but we are going to discuss now this during the panel. And our companies, the majority of which are SMEs, like Neil very well said in the beginning, they need the skills, the workforce, in order to continue to thrive and to be competitive. I am dealing with the Education and Training Committee, which is very important for CEMET, even though we know that education and training is not a European competence, but still there is a very broad skills agenda. And I am also dealing with the Social Dialogue Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel. And Joanne?
Hi, so I'm Jo Gogley. So I lead the Siemens professional education across the UK and the Nordics. Put simply, in my role, we focus on how we bring skills, learning and workforce transformation together. And that's from early careers right through to reskilling and upskilling our existing workforce. I think what I see every day is that talent is everywhere, but opportunity, access to learning and clarity on what skills matter most are not always evenly distributed, especially in such a significant size organization like ourselves. So at Siemens, what we're doing is we're helping, we focus on helping our people develop and embrace a growth mindset and commit to lifelong learning. This is supported by a minimum of 50-hour learning target. But importantly, we don't just set expectations on time for our people. We support the what and the how through our learning offerings in business critical skills, strategic areas like digital, AI and sustainability, and foundational skills like cognitive, self-regulation and working together skills. And that supports how we think, how we work and how we collaborate as one. I think for me, this discussion and this panel today about the SEFI paper really resonates, but because it reflects the reality of what we're seeing in industry. We're operating in a world that is changing faster than our systems and skills development can keep up with, particularly with the pace of digitalization and AI. And for us, the challenge is no longer just, do people have the right qualifications anymore? It's, can they adapt? Can they learn continuously? Can they apply skills in new and changing contexts? So it's actually true for all of our roles as well. It's not just limited to our engineers.
Great, thank you. So they are. So we have, as you said, a very interesting panel to discuss the skills agenda today. Before we begin our panel discussion and going through the position paper, I thought it would be a useful thing to have a audience participation exercise. So I'm going to hand over to my co-host, Jenny, who's going to run that. Jenny.
Hi, yes. So this is one where you don't have to speak, so you don't have to leave the room. I'm going to share my screen. What we're going to ask you to do is there are 5 skills areas on the screen. These are going from a synthesis of different reports, and they're reported to be gaps across the reports. And what we'd like you to do is to rank these in order of importance. I'm going to share my screen now. So if you either use the QR code or go to menti.com and put in the number that is there, you should see these skills areas, and it'd be really interesting to know what you think. So which comes across as the most important and which the least? Excellent. I can see almost everyone has responded now. So thank you. Hopefully you didn't look at anyone else's results before you looked at the screen. But this is really interesting from our point of view, I think. It's worth saying this synthesis of reports is not purely about engineering. It has come from sort of UK Department of Education and information from Deloitte. So this is across the board. And I think actually what we're seeing here is it is that thing about working with others that comes through stronger than everything else. We might all be slightly panicking about digital literacy, but the fact that that's come forth rather than first shows that we're fairly confident that we can probably work through that. So thank you. Hopefully that will influence the discussion that we have in a moment.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jen. I just wondered if we could just quickly, before we talk about the position paper, just have some initial reactions from our panel today on the results there. Is there anything surprising or anything, is it what you'd expect? Joe?
So I think for me, actually, initially, you would have thought that all you hear about at the moment is digital and AI. So you would have thought that that would have come up top. But I think it's not surprising, actually, when you break it down amongst these other skills, because these are the human skills that really complement how well we actually use digital and AI. So it's much easier to teach people how to use the tools like AI. The skills that we really need are those human skills, because at Siemens, really, we're seeing a few big shifts, and one of those is that human and technology together. So it's bringing those skills together because they complement each other so much. So, and not surprising for me here. And I think adaptability is the number one thing that we talk about at Siemens, because if our people can adapt, they can change quickly, they can pivot, they can learn, they can unlearn, then the adaptability and that resilience is the most important one we talk about right now.
So attitudinal, as we've got there, attitude is it's an interesting thing, isn't it, to be thinking of that as a skill. Isabel?
Yes, also to me, it doesn't come as a surprise. I think adaptability is the key skill today. So we need a workforce that is able to adapt to a changing environment, and very important, that has the ability to learn new skills and to continue learning in order to adapt to a changing world of work. Industry is transforming very quickly. We are in need of not only digital skills, but many other skills all the time. And we need a workforce that has this ability to, also to be motivated and to engage and to adapt and to be flexible enough to adapt to these changes. So if you have this ability, you can also learn digital skills, digital literacy, AI skills, but you need first this ability and this flexibility to continue learning and to understand that you need this learning to be also to remain employable. So for us, this is key. This is a key skill. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anna Gail, do you have any thoughts? No, Anna Gail. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry. Yeah, it's better with the mic. So yeah, for me, it's exactly what I was thinking. What has already been said, so it's okay. No special thing.
So one of the things that strikes out for me here is that the bottom skill, if you like, number 5, is creating value, business understanding. Could you, what's the reaction to that? I mean, it's significantly lower, isn't it, than the other 4? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for that as well, if we're thinking about people joining an organization, we're thinking about people coming out of academia. Again, I think if you've got those other skills, so if you've got those transferable skills, so you can problem solve, you can collaborate, you can communicate, you can adapt and you can learn, actually, I think that's almost like a byproduct of that, because then once you know the business, you can use those other skills that you have, your technical ability, your transferable skills, to actually that will happen naturally anyway. That's how you will create the value, by relationship building, by getting closer to your customers, by being able to to critically think about the work. So I don't think it's that it's not important. I think it's kind of almost like a byproduct of the others, really.
And also,
is my interpretation.
Yeah, and also I suppose there's that mission creep as well of a university trying to do what actually a company could do better once the graduates are there. Yeah, okay. Is there any other thoughts on this before we move on? Okay, great. Thanks, Jen. Do you want to stop sharing your screen? Okay, so thank you for that. So that was just a flavour of the kind of discussions that we have and about the different skills. So we're going to move now on to the SEFI position paper. Some of you on the call may have read it already, but just a sort of a reminder for those of you, or if you don't know, there's probably about 25 authors from about 20 universities contributed to this last year. We put this position paper together. I'm going to hand over to Thies Johansen, who was one of the primary authors of the paper, to discuss it more. Thies, do you want me to share my screen?
Yes, please. That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So it is my privilege today to talk briefly about the position paper and give you an overview. As you can read it, the QR code is at the top of the slide. You're invited happily and invited to have a look if you may. So I will not go into every detail that is within the paper, but rather provide a brief context and overview so that we can build upon that. The position paper is nothing that came new, but rather something in a line of other work that has been done by SEFI in the past. So there has been a position paper on skills in 2016, and we build upon that. So Neil, if you may, we have the current version that has been published last year and that we are talking about today. In the paper, we say that there is a pledge to renew it. So we engage with all stakeholders and bring in different voices and understand the position paper as an impulse and as a live document. So we would like to stipulate debate. We would like to bring people together, different stakeholders, different perspectives and different needs, and build on that. Neil, please. Thank you. So complementing the conventional is part of the title, and that is quite an important part of the title because it says that it is something that is complementing something that we also do need, and that is the technical skills and a disciplinary education as a foundation for engineers. However, Neil, please. The position paper is mission and value driven and supposed to inform, and we hope to contribute to inform engineering education by it. So we are talking about a distinct and valuable contribution to society that we believe should be done by engineers as part of society and a bigger whole, addressing societal challenges by being creative, innovative, and professional, by being engaged and responsible, by considering diversity, equality, and inclusion, and tackling issues that are environmentally and socially sustainable and important in that regard. Neil, please. So within the paper, you can find a structure that we like to call a 5-4-3-2-1 structure. Basically, the idea is that we are in times that could be described as the fifth industrial revolution. There is the five. Overall, we are living in a VUCA world. That is a world that is volatile, that is uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So that is the 4. The 3 is the contextuality of competencies and skills. So we always have a context within they are applied. Competencies and skills understood as a combination of knowledge, values, and abilities or skills. And that leads us to the 3T framework, which is technical skills as the disciplinary foundation on the one hand side, transferable skills we've been talking about before, and transdisciplinary skills as an overarching approach. All of those are to contribute to helping shape holistic engineers that are capable, but also are reflective in the way that they can act responsibly within their societal context. And just to give you a brief idea, those are just pretty much random chosen examples. However, they might illustrate what we're trying to talk about. Neil, next slide, please. Thank you very much. The 3T framework refers to technical skills, transferable skills, and transdisciplinary skills and competencies. So on the technical side, we have the disciplinary approaches like mathematics or mathematical skills, computational skills, problem solving in terms of disciplinary. Problem solving also, of course, can be a transferable competency and skill. And you see that it is a bit fuzzy in those categories. However, we do believe they help to orient. CAD, for example, could be a technical competence as well. So if we talk about transferable skills, it's cooperation, communication, project management, for example, feedback literacy, and the transdisciplinary aspects of it may be ethics or ethical aspects, sustainability aspects, societal impact that we want to achieve, and cross-sector collaboration. So collaborating between, for example, academia or science and research, and businesses, industry, on the other hand, politics or civil society stakeholders. all of that is in a broader context, and we encourage people to try to understand engineering education as a holistic approach that we try to enable people to be competent in order to gain additional competencies and skills. So the lifelong learning approach is something that is a red thread throughout the position paper. And the position paper itself, we do believe, is, as I mentioned earlier, a contribution to a debate that provides a common language for everybody to rely on and talk about the same things, but also something that can be an argument or a leverage if you want to provide change within your own institution, if you want to focus on different profiles in terms of skills, or if you want to have any kind of outreach projects with non-academic stakeholders within the industry, within academia, reaching out to industry. So that, just as a very general overview, obviously, it has been the result of an iterative process throughout SEFI. We have multiple workshops held on different conferences and had multiple discussions and involved all of the society in publishing the paper. Thanks. You're muted, Neil, sorry.
Thank you. So thank you, Thies. We've introduced the position paper now. You can see that it brings, for us as engineering educators, a shared understanding, a clarity around skills agenda, so that we can, in our own universities, better understand what we're teaching and reshape our curriculums. So part of it is an efficiency thing, really, that making sure that that clarity is there so that things are easier to do, as well as T says, the idea of leverage. What I want to do now then is start the panel discussion about the different aspects of the position paper. All of the people on the panel have been obviously read the discussion, and I've also we've had some questions as well in advance given to them, and we're going to talk around those questions today, and we're going to I think to just firstly is just to open up the discussion, is to ask our panel members, you know, how do they currently define the skills gap and skills agenda within their own context, i.e. industry, and do you believe that this gap is widening or closing? So a very general question to start with, just trying to motivate the position paper. So I don't know who wants to go first. If you put your hand up, that might be the easiest. If someone's ready with an answer. Anybody? And I'll try and get this. Joe, you're muted.
I think there's a slight delay. Is that working now?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, happy to start. So I think for me, the skills gap is less about shortage of people, because quite often we talk about the shortage of people as well as skills, but it's more about a mismatch or alignment of those skills that we're seeing as becoming increasingly more important now. So it's the skills that have got the people have now that are needed actually in the workplace. And it's widening in certain areas. We're seeing this in things like the digital fluency, the data and the AI, as well as those transferable skills that we've talked about, like problem solving and adaptability. So a lot of the learning now that we're doing as part of the lifelong learning for all our people is building some of those foundational skills on the strategic skills, like those digital, like sustainability. So they've got the right sort of skill set, the right sort of mindset, and the right sort of tool set towards those topics, but also it's kind of using ways in which they can learn. So it's not just formal webinars or training courses, it's actually you know, sort of projects and hackathons and things like that, so you can apply those skills. I think what really resonates with me with the paper is that it's a really nice balance there of having the technical, which we call the business critical skills, you've got those transferable skills, which we refer to as foundational skills, and then you've got some of those wider contextual skills, some of which comes through in our strategic skills, especially like the sustainability, the social sustainability sustainability, the ethics, those sorts of things. So it actually really aligns well to the sort of the three pillars that we talk about at Siemens a lot. And it reinforces the importance of that lifelong learning. So not just education at the start of your career, and recognizing that engineering roles, they sit within a broader sort of social and ethical context now too. I think if I can fire it back with one sort of challenge around the paper at the moment, I think where we've still got work to do is more about how we're measuring those skills in a consistent way, and how we're making them visible for individuals and employers, and how we're embedding them into academia, into apprenticeships and funding models that are still quite rigid, so that when we see the skills gap, when people join the industry, it's not so significant.
Thank you. Yes. Isabel.
Yes, so maybe if I may refer to a data, the European Commission says that up to 75% of SMEs are facing difficulties to find the skilled workforce that they need. Right. This is also our case for the MET industries. What we continuously listen from our member associations that are representing the companies is that their companies have difficulties in finding the workforce that they need to continue to be competitive and also create quality jobs. In our views, Europe does not produce enough graduates in higher education, nor vocational education and training, which is very important for the industries. And also we do not have enough workers with a STEM background, which is also key for the industries. In addition, there is not sufficient participation in continuous training once you are in the labor market. So I think this applies to all kind of workforce. Mainly it concerns a low-skilled workforce, but it is also affecting a highly skilled workforce. And also one of the things that in our views is a challenge is that career guidance systems are not well developed in the majority of the member states. We believe that career guidance systems are very important because they can guide young people into, for example, vocational education and training or STEM studies or others where there is a need that are going to produce the skills that companies are in need of. When it comes to the skills gap, there is two factors. One of them is the demographic change. This is more linked to skill shortage of labor, I would say. We have many employees that are going to retire or are currently retiring, and there will be no replacement in Europe. Also, because we do not have enough. We are not attracting talent from outside Europe. And on the other hand, we think the skills gap is widening, at least in the area of digitalization, artificial intelligence, the need of skills now adapted to sustainability, green skills, etc. So for us, yes, the skills gap, it's continuously widening, or is still widening. Yeah.
Thank you, Isabel. And Gail, do you have anything?
Almost the same as previously said. We have very importance on the skill gap, especially the generation gap, because some people will retire for our future program. So we have really to prepare young generation, but also in terms of number of people, because we want to upskill really our full workforce, but also our supply chain. So for us, this is very important. So the challenge is really to find the right person at the right time and to put them at the right place, because we have a lot of different jobs in Airbus, but it is important also that the graduate find the job that they imagine at the beginning entering into Airbus, because there is very various.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So thank you to everyone for answering that opening question. I think, Joe, it was interesting that you did have an alignment with what we're doing, but you talked about this implementation. I like the conceptualization of mindset, skill set, and tool set. Actually, that's very good, and how things are implemented. And I think Isabel and Anna speak to this idea. Well, I think this idea of SMEs being perhaps not having the capacity to address skills gap in a way a large corporate like Siemens does is something that stood out there. I think just to move on the question then, if we go to the actual position paper and talk about some of the things itself. I know, Joe, you've just addressed some of this, but what was your, I think it's a question to all of you, what was your immediate sort of reaction to the SEFI Positions Paper's basic breakdown of technical, transferable and transdisciplinary skills? Because we're finding that that's the part of the paper that engineering educators are gravitating towards. I suppose we've talked about the alignment at Siemens already as being similar with digital fluency, problem adaptability, sustainability. But yeah, so I'm interested to know what was your immediate reaction to that, to the paper? I don't know who wants to start. Yep, Isabel.
Yes, I mean, for us, representing the tech industries, we are quite aligned on what the paper says, in particular on the need for the combination of technical, soft, and transferable skills.
Yeah.
You know, this is key to adapt to a changing world of work. So, of course, we cannot only have technical skills. We need also soft and transferable skills. So we are absolutely aligned with this focus. Also, I want to say also that, of course, the importance of soft skills should not make us underestimate the need of deep technical skills.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anna Gail?
Yeah, just to say also we are aligned with this view, with this 3 pillar, and this is also how we evolve in our industry. Something also question myself in your paper, in the transferable chapter, you really put the focus with AI as a tool. So with the ability to work with AI, but for us, there is also the ability to work. AI is a tool. It's not the full, it's not over the other discipline, it's only a tool. And for us, it's important also to be capable to work with system engineering or eco-design at the same level as AI.
Yes, thank you. It's a good point. Joe? Joe, you're muted again.
Sorry. Yeah, it keeps going on a bit of delay. Sorry about that. I should wait a moment before I speak. So I talked about how actually the paper aligns quite well to our thinking at Siemens and where we are. But I think the only other thing to add is like it's never going to be perfect. And I think the important thing is about being agile to flex some of those skills, because whilst I think it's important then to take it to the next level. So how do we start implementing those skills? How do we start doing that? The pace of change is incredible. So you know how quickly this sort of fifth industrial revolution is changing. Actually, those skills will shift. So it's important to sort of get started, if you know what I mean. Sometimes I think, and then start that speed of change, because they might adapt slightly, but I think broadly they're there.
Okay, thank you. So I suppose there's a follow-up question. I think there's a couple of interesting things that you've raised so far. I think the idea of working with AI as a tool versus collaboration is interesting. AI collaboration is something that we see in an academic sense as being an ultimate goal, because we see the real potential. But I think this idea of having a boundary for AI, understanding what the AI's boundary is important, and then the agility. So if we move the discussion on to this idea that we all broadly accept the 3T skills conceptualization of transdisciplinary, technical and transferable skills, there's obviously a tension in universities of how much time we spend on each of those three things. I know, Anna Gail, you said we need to have deep technical understanding. So I'm interested for you, thinking about the profile of your graduates that you receive from us, essentially. Do you think the universities are getting this balance right, I suppose, between these three different aspects of skills, the 3T skills? So interesting, nuanced question. I'm interested to know if you've got any perspectives on that, the balance of skills that we at universities are teaching. Anna Gail?
First, I would say that we feel the tension You
Right.
have, because I often discuss with university by asking, okay, could you please introduce this discipline or this skill in your curriculum, and it creates a lot of tension and reaction toward us. Okay, please don't ask us to add this. It's too quick. We are not able, and we have to choose between all the disciplines. So we really feel the tension. And for us, how we manage it, as we see, is difficult for university, is to propose some project-based program so that we enable the graduate to also practice the other skills that they could not have been introduced through their courses in university, because we have asked it too quickly. So this is how we have adapted the situation.
So yeah, so you you do see the gaps, if you like, from the graduate, and then try and plug them with your own training. That's interesting. Joe?
On training or co-developed training, so that it helps also the university to adapt their courses, yes, without changing everything, because it's impossible in some such time frame sometimes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Joe?
So for us, a couple of years ago, maybe even 3 years ago now, we actually shifted our hiring for early careers approach, and we have moved from sort of job titles to more skills-based hiring. So so actually the CV comes into the process at the very, very end now. So it's not just about academic ability, but actually the way we approach it is more the hiring for potential, and it brings in an element of gamification, and for looking at those other transferable skills that we've talked about and how they're approaching that in the recruitment process. We have about 1,000 applications per graduate role. So it does also actually help with that process. But what we find then is, I think by the time the graduates join us, actually the ones that we have recruited already have that sort of mindset. They already have that. We know they've got the academic qualifications because they've met any sort of minimum eligibility criteria that we do have for certain roles. Of course, we have to have that certain technical knowledge there for engineering roles in some aspects, but they already come with some of those other skills that we've talked about. So it is improving for us. And we are seeing that strong technical knowledge too, of course, but sometimes there is less confidence in applying that knowledge in real world sort of problem solving and decision making situations. But of course, on a graduate program, then we help to build those skills. But much like with apprenticeships, obviously we're a big employer of apprenticeships at Siemens, and they already incorporate the knowledge, skills and behaviours. So even at sort of school leavers, the behaviours, which are the foundational skills, we're seeing come through in our apprentices too, because it's actually built into the framework of an apprenticeship standard now. So they're already obviously addressing knowledge, skills and behaviours. So it's just about mirroring that with the graduate entry points too.
Right, thank you. Yeah, so hiring for potential and totally changing your recruitment strategy. Isabel, do you have any further to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we believe cooperation between universities and the world of work, or cooperation between industry and companies is key. We need actually curricula and training modules that are labor market driven, because we need a workforce that has the skills that companies need. Skills moves very quickly. So we think that there is a need to reinforce the links between industry and universities through projects, through the co-developing training, like Angael said, etc. We believe this is very important. And probably we also need to address the way that education systems are adapting to the evolving skills needs, because of course the programs are not so flexible. So it's difficult to adapt to the evolving needs of industries. But for us, training that is labor market driven, curriculum that is labor market driven is key.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So so I think that was some useful perspectives there on agility, training, changing your recruitment, but also thinking about training. I'd like to move the discussion on now to so that was the our infographic way of understanding the position paper, the 3T skills, the technical and the trans skills, and that's why it's 2. Can we move maybe on to the other part of the position paper, which was, we called it contextual competencies, which essentially means that skills, clusters of skills, of those 3 different types of skills, are learned in a particular context, and people bring their particular values, their ethical values, to the skill itself. So sort of personal attitude, self-awareness, self-reflection, curiosity, all of these things are part of contextual competencies. So these are kind of always, engineers can get a little bit nervous talking about these things sometimes, because they're the softer side, I suppose, of describing people, not just the analytical. So I'm interested to know what your thoughts were on the contextual competencies part of the position paper and describing skills, not as skills, but as contextual competencies. Who wants to start? Thank you, Joe. Joe.
So I think this topic, again, has always been important to Siemens, and it's in our values as well. And I think this is in people, isn't it? It's not just at work, but also how they show up in their personal lives too,
Indeed.
right?
Yeah.
And we are looking at those behaviours, and some of them do cross over, I think, to those transferable, that we call them the foundational skills. So things like adaptability, for example. But we are also looking at things like curiosity, creativity, and accountability as well. So I think some of those fall with more in that sort of contextual space. So we definitely have a focus on some of those in there. And we do tend to engage with our people through our values, through our things like our code of conduct. I think our recruitment processes, I talked a little bit about that before, but also in our learning offerings. But again, it's still something that's evolving, because it's particularly hard to sort of consistently define how we measure and sort of gauge where they are, I suppose, and where people are with those. And although some of these skills are not new, we're talking about them a lot more and more, as I said, where the world of work is changing. So it's something where we are still sort of measuring, I guess, in terms of where we are with those. But it's part of our values. A lot of these come in and how we live and breathe when we take people into our organisation, really.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a more difficult topic, I think, than the 3T skills. Is any other thoughts on that? No, yeah, it's a more difficult topic, isn't it?
I think the social responsibility comes in here as well, doesn't it?
Yes.
So and we do quite a lot with our people with the sort of the corporate social responsibility, and we give them days to do volunteering and things like that. Like we're doing an awful lot more around that space as well. So it's not just green skills, for example, on the sustainability side. So I think that in terms of those skills are developed through what we do there too.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. So yeah, so corporate values, which are an interesting topic in itself, and I don't suggest we talk about them today, but yeah, so that's the contextual competencies side. Anna Gail?
Yes, I wanted to complete also by saying that for sure also in Airbus, we have different programs where we encourage young talent to participate to other ambassadors inside Airbus, but also with the university, with young graduate, so that they can express this value, also exchange about the values, the ethics, and so on. So there is a lot of initiative where they really could live them and show these values. And we encourage it really since really they arrive in the company.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So yeah. So I think there's more work to do on the contextual competency side. I think it is an interesting area to work in. Conscious of time, we've got 10 minutes left, and we're slightly behind schedule. I think let's move it on then. So we've done the 2, we've done the 3. The contextual competencies. The 4 and the 5 of the position paper can be considered the 5th industrial revolution and the VUCA landscape. So this really is talking about the macro side of things, the macroeconomic shifts, the industrial context and the world context. I suppose the question is, to you is, how are you experiencing these macro effects of the fifth industrial revolution in VUCA? How is that considered in terms of the skills agenda and addressing it in your companies? Anna-Gail?
So for us, the challenge is very big because there is the VUCA world, for sure.
Yeah.
But we have also particularly some ramp up in our company in aerospace industry. So it's a big challenge for our recruitment team to be able to recruit graduates from the legacy, I would say, discipline. Also with the life cycle of an aircraft is long, so the legacy discipline like mechanics and so on, but also recruit talent with the new skills that we see, such as digital, sustainability, and so on. So it's a big challenge.
So managing that tension between the legacy, the main disciplines, and the new skills. Yeah, Joe, do you want to?
Yeah, so we're really recognising that shift and that pace of that digitalisation and AI and just that pace of change. But these are topics actually that we talk about all the time with our people. We're bringing them on the journey with us, and that's through our businesses, through our services, to our customers, and also a lot through the narrative with our people. And we're really transparent about what we know in the VUCA world, but also more importantly, quite often what we don't know. So I think it's just being authentic about that with our leaders and our people, and what that future brings, but also how with our people we can positively embrace change, because of course it's the only one constant thing, right? So it's about developing the growth mindset and the understanding that change is here to stay. And we recognize that our portfolio is exactly where it needs to be, but we need to be agile, and we need to bring our people on the journey, because that pace of change is nothing like we've experienced in previous industrial revolutions.
Right, yes, thank you. Isabel?
Yes, so for us on the workplace, we focus very much on up and reskilling. We think this is key to adapt to all these very big changes and very quick changes. We also believe that mentoring is a good way forward in order also to have advice on, for example, what type of training you can undergo in order to adapt to new skills. There is plenty of training there, and not all of it is quality, not all of it is valuable. So we also need this kind of mentoring, of guidance. And if I may, again, I would like to insist on the importance of career guidance systems. This is before youngsters are entering the world of work. So for very young people, for students, it is important for them to understand all these changes, to understand where employment opportunities are, to understand what is the type of talent that industries are requiring. So we insist very much on career guidance systems at the school level for students and before entering the labor market.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So they were the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 concepts, and I think we've touched on a few things that we might run out of time for the questions on these, on things like lifelong learning that's needed, and obviously the disruptive technologies. So as we're sort of coming to a close on this discussion, I think I would like to, thinking about things like lifelong learning and disruptive technologies, you have a talent pipeline in your to think about the workforce, and we are, as engineering educators, quite early on in the pipeline, and we're all focused on the workforce of the 2030s, really. So I suppose for us, I'm interested in maybe sort of as a final sort of thought for everyone here today is, what do you want educators to take away, and what do you think we need to do better in our part of the pipeline in order so that you can do your job better in yours for the workforce? So any thoughts? Anna-Gail?
For us, it's really to cross-fertilize between educator and our expert, co-develop program together. Exchange on our curriculum or skills roadmap more often to better anticipate.
So we have accreditation cycles that are very long, but I think more dynamic agility in terms of evolving our curriculum. I do have to move slowly. Joe.
Yeah, so I think it's the collaboration is key, isn't it, between the industry and the employers, and keeping up that sort of regular communication as well. And from industry, it's, you know, we have an obligation to be really clear and articulate like what skills needs we need, where we're seeing gaps in the marketplace, and present some of that data in a more transparent way. And for education, I think it's about really building that flexibility and agility into the system that are quite often rigid, quite longer programs that are, you know, somebody's starting a program now that they finish in 5 years, and there is a place for those programs, but actually some of them, they need to flex pathways. They probably need to be a bit more modular, because actually what those people start with 5 years ago, the workplace might look very different in 5 years. So I think it's probably about how we can respond quickly and how we can work together as employers and as industry. So it's a shared responsibility, really.
Okay, thank you. And Isabel?
Yeah, certainly for us, we will also insist on this need to reinforce the links between, reinforce cooperation between universities and industries. Also, it is important that programs become more flexible, because it's true that curricula is on many occasions too rigid, not flexible enough to adapt to changing skills needs. We also insist again on the need to have training and curricula that is labor market driven, again, to have the workforce that with the skills that companies are in need of. And maybe also a point on the SEFI position paper. I think you are not highlighting enough the added value of engineers when it comes to enhancing competitiveness, to enhancing productivity and business added value. I think this should be also highlighted in the paper. So you speak very much about the need of transferable soft technical skills, but I think you should also highlight this point of business added value, enhancing productivity and competitiveness.
Absolutely. And yes, and that's something that I think a future paper could do. And Miguel.
Yeah, and also I think specifically on the SEFI, maybe more discussion exchange between industrial and the different group you have, because in some group there is no industrial, and in some we are contacted, and sometimes there is no discussion between the groups. So maybe it could be good that industrial are more involved in the different group, so that some groups are not too much academic.
Yeah.
And that we maybe learn from each other in all the groups.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we are out of time now. I think the discussion has been really useful, I think, for everybody. And I just want to thank you very much for coming today to talk to us. And the other thing is I'm just going to hand over quickly to Jenny Griffiths, who's been monitoring the chat. Is there anything on the chat, Jenny?
We've had quite a lot of discussion and a lot of questions in chat. I'm not sure any of them can be answered quickly, but there were definite questions around sustainability aspects, which it would be useful to think about more in future. Okay, great. Well, what we'll do is we're going to have another half hour after this where we'll stay on the chat to talk if people want to continue the discussion. Before I bring the session to a formal close again, I just want to thank Joe and Gail. But also I need to thank Lillian Luke from the University of Hong Kong and Kirsten Williams from Lex Communications for helping put this together today.
So yeah, so I'd like to just thank Isabel, Anna Gale, and Joanne for joining us, and I hope that everyone on the call has enjoyed the discussion. It continues. We're looking at an industry response, formal response to the position paper. That will be the SEFI SIGS focus over the next year. So thank you everyone for joining. We're going to stop the recording now, and we'll continue the chat afterwards. Thank you.